Welcome, everyone. Today, I want to take you on a journey, not just through time, but through hope, through struggle, through revolution, through friendship between nations, and through the soul of one of the most powerful symbols in human history, the Statue of Liberty. You've seen her in photos, you've seen her in movies. Maybe you've even stood before her looking up at that towering green figure holding a torch to the sky. But do you know her story? Do you know why she exists? Do you know the secrets she holds inside her copper skin? This isn't just the story of a statue. It's the story of millions of immigrants who crossed oceans in search of freedom. The story of revolutionaries who risked everything to fight for liberty. The story of friendship between two powerful countries, France and the United States. And the story of how hope is built, brick by brick, even when the world tries to break you down. This video is for anyone who's ever felt lost, for anyone searching for light in the darkness, and for anyone who still believes in something bigger than themselves. So sit back, open your heart, and come with me. Because once you know the real story of the Statue of Liberty, you'll never look at her the same way again. This story is perfect for your English because it's told in simple, clear language, filled with real emotions, powerful vocabulary, and natural sentence flow. It helps you understand, feel, and think in English, all while learning about one of the most inspiring stories in the world. Let's begin. Part 1. The Birth of an Idea, How It All Began. The year is 1865. The American Civil War had just ended. The United States had been torn apart by a brutal war between the North and the South over slavery and states' rights. Over 600,000 Americans were dead, families destroyed, cities in ruin. But out of the ashes of war, one powerful idea remained standing: freedom. Across the ocean, in France, a man was watching. His name was Edouard René de la Boulaye. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't an artist. He was a French law professor, historian, and political thinker. And he loved America. He believed the U.S. was a model of freedom, a country where democracy was real, and liberty lived in the hearts of the people. And he wanted to honor that. So in 1865, he spoke these words: "If a monument should rise in the United States as a memorial to their independence, I should think it only natural if it were built by united effort, by both France and America." Those were the first sparks. But at the time, it was just an idea. There was no statue, no design, no money, just a dream. But dreams, like freedom, are powerful. A few years later, La Boulaye shared his idea with a young French sculptor named Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi. Bartholdi had a wild imagination. He had always been fascinated by giant sculptures, and he believed in making art that inspired nations. When La Boulaye told him about a statue symbolizing liberty to honor the U.S., Bartholdi's mind exploded with ideas. He imagined a colossal woman, dressed like a Roman goddess, holding a torch in one hand, a tablet in the other, wearing a crown with 7 rays, like the sun shining over the 7 continents and 7 seas. This would not be just another statue. It would be a beacon of hope. In 1871, Bartholdi took a ship to America. He visited cities, talked to politicians, studied American culture, and he fell in love with New York Harbor. When he saw Bedloe's Island, a small island in the harbor, he knew it. "This is the place," he said, "the gateway to America. The statue must stand here." Why? because it was the first thing immigrants would see when they arrived in the USA. Light a welcome, a promise. But there was a problem: money. Building such a massive statue was insanely expensive. So they made a deal. France would fund and build the statue. America would fund and build the pedestal it would stand on. But easier said than done. In France, people were struggling with political chaos and poverty. In America, the Civil War had just ended, and people were focused on rebuilding their own lives. Convincing people to donate money for a statue? It sounded crazy. Still, Bartholdi didn't give up. In France, he partnered with a brilliant engineer, Gustave Eiffel. Yes, the same man who later built the Eiffel Tower. Together, they designed the internal metal structure that would hold the statue upright through wind, rain, and time. Bartholdi began building the arm holding the torch first. He wanted something physical to show people, to get them excited. He built it huge. The fingers alone were taller than a person. He sent it to America early. And in 1876, during the U.S. Centennial Celebration in Philadelphia, thousands of people saw the Arm of Liberty for the first time. People were stunned. This wasn't just a statue. This was something legendary. But in America, things weren't going well. The U.S. had agreed to build the pedestal, but there was no money. The government didn't help. Wealthy elites said it wasn't worth it. Newspapers mocked the project. It looked like the dream might die. But then, something powerful happened. In 1885, a Hungarian immigrant named Joseph Pulitzer, who owned a newspaper called the New York World, decided to take a stand. He wrote, "Let us not wait for the millionaires. The statue is for the people. Let the people build it." And he started a massive public fundraising campaign. He promised to print the name of every single person who donated, no matter how small. And guess what? People responded. Over 120,000 donations came in. Most were under $1. Many were from school children, factory workers, and poor families. This wasn't just about a statue anymore. It was a movement. The people were saying, "We believe in liberty, and we'll build it ourselves." Part 2. Rebuilding a Giant, Piece by Piece, the Arrival and Assembly of Liberty. The year is 1885. After nearly 20 years of dreaming, designing, building, and struggling, the Statue of Liberty has finally arrived in New York Harbor, in the form of 350 broken pieces packed inside 214 wooden crates. Each crate was labeled, numbered, and carefully protected. But what lay inside wasn't just copper and metal. It was hope. It was sacrifice. It was a gift from the people of France to the people of America. And now, the real challenge began. How do you build a 151-foot statue from 350 parts? This wasn't just construction. It was one of the most complicated, risky, and emotional architectural projects in American history. Here's the heartbreaking part. When the statue arrived, the pedestal wasn't finished yet. The very platform where she was supposed to stand was still under construction. Why? Because even though thousands of Americans had finally donated after Joseph Pulitzer's campaign, the money had come in late and the construction had been delayed. So the crates filled with pieces of the Statue of Liberty had to be stored for months, waiting, hoping, rusting. Think about that. This grand symbol of liberty was lying in storage, hidden from view, silent, waiting for the world to see her. It was almost like a metaphor. Liberty exists, but sometimes the world isn't ready to receive her. After months of hard work, stone cutting, and construction, the pedestal was finally completed in April 1886. It was a powerful base, about 89 feet tall, made of granite and concrete, designed to support the massive weight of the statue. Now, the most difficult work began. They had to assemble the statue, one giant piece at a time, on Bedloe's Island, using scaffolding, cranes, manpower, and unbreakable patience. Bartholdi returned from France to supervise the entire assembly. First came the iron frame designed by Gustave Eiffel. This inner structure was like a metal skeleton, engineered to support the outer copper skin of the statue, and to withstand the wind, storms, and vibrations for hundreds of years. Then, piece by piece, they began attaching the copper plates. Her feet were anchored first, resting on a broken chain, symbolizing freedom from tyranny. Her legs and robe came next, formed by dozens of massive curved copper sheets. Then her torso, the tablet she holds in her left hand, inscribed with the date of American independence, July 4th, 1776. Then her right arm, raised high, holding the torch, which would one day shine as a beacon of hope to millions. And finally, her head, crowned with 7 rays, representing the 7 continents and 7 seas, a gift for all the world, not just one nation. The crown itself had 25 windows, symbolizing the jewels of freedom and the way light shines through liberty to guide the world. Imagine the emotion of that moment. Every time a piece was lifted into place, it wasn't just an act of construction. It was a message being written across the sky. Behind this historic assembly were the real heroes. The immigrant workers, iron workers, builders, and laborers who risked their lives to put the pieces together. They climbed dangerous scaffolding, handled heavy copper panels, and followed detailed instructions to ensure every curve, every bolt, every seam was perfect. Many of these workers were immigrants themselves, Irish, Italian, German, Eastern European. The very people who would look up at the statue and see a symbol of their own hope. They weren't building someone else's dream. They were building their own future. With their hands, with their sweat, with their courage. Few people know this, but the Statue of Liberty has hidden rooms and staircases inside. As the pieces were assembled, a spiral staircase was installed inside the statue, climbing all the way from the pedestal to the crown. 354 steps in total. There was also a secret room inside the torch, a place that once offered one of the most stunning views of New York Harbor. In fact, for a few years, visitors could actually climb up and look out from the torch itself, until it was closed in 1916 after an explosion during World War I damaged it. Even today, the torch room remains closed to the public, a reminder that liberty must be protected, sometimes from the world itself. After months of backbreaking work, the statue was finally complete. And on October 28, 1886, the Statue of Liberty was officially unveiled. The day was cold, windy, but the streets of New York were filled with joy. Boats gathered in the harbor. Thousands of people watched from the shore. President Grover Cleveland came to give the speech. He said, "We will not forget that liberty has here made her home." As the French and American flags covering the statue were pulled away, revealing her full glory, the people cheered like never before. Church bells rang, cannons fired. There was a parade 5 miles long. It was one of the first times in history that ticker tape was thrown from windows, a celebration technique that would become iconic in American parades. That day, Liberty became more than a statue. She became a living symbol. A symbol of freedom, of unity, of struggle, of the idea that no matter where you come from, you deserve a chance to be free. In the years that followed, the Statue of Liberty became the first thing immigrants saw when they arrived in America. Imagine being a poor man from Italy, or a mother from Poland, or a boy from Ireland. You've left behind everything. You're on a ship for weeks. You're scared, tired, hungry. And then, you see her, that tall figure holding her torch up high, telling you, you are welcome here. You are free now. Many immigrants cried when they saw her. Some knelt down, some whispered prayers, some kissed the ship's railings. Because for them, she wasn't just a statue. She was a mother, a protector, a promise. Here's a difficult truth. When the Statue of Liberty was unveiled, not everyone in America was free. African Americans were still fighting racism and injustice. Women did not have the right to vote. Native Americans were being pushed off their land. Chinese immigrants were being banned from entering the country. So some people looked at the statue and said, "She holds a torch of liberty, but not all of us can stand in her light." And they were right. But the beauty of liberty is this: it doesn't demand perfection. It invites progress. The Statue of Liberty became not just a celebration of freedom, but a challenge to make that freedom real for everyone. When the Statue of Liberty was unveiled in 1886, she stood proudly in New York Harbor, a magnificent gift from France, a symbol of friendship, liberty, and democracy. But in truth, most people didn't fully understand what she meant yet. To many, she was just a beautiful statue. To others, just a symbol of American independence. And to some, she was just a tourist attraction. But that was about to change, because sometimes a single piece of writing can change the meaning of an entire monument. In 1883, 3 years before the statue even arrived in America, a young Jewish American poet named Emma Lazarus was asked to write a poem for an art auction that was raising money for the statue's pedestal. Emma was the daughter of immigrants. She had seen poor Jewish refugees escaping persecution in Russia and Europe. She had seen their pain, their hunger, their fear. When she was asked to write something for the auction, she didn't write about politics. She didn't write about France or America. She wrote about immigrants. She wrote about the unwanted, the tired, the lost. She gave the Statue of Liberty a new voice, the voice of a mother welcoming her children. Her poem was called "The New Colossus." It said, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." Those words weren't carved on the statue when it was built. In fact, after the auction, Emma Lazarus's poem was mostly forgotten. She died young, just a year after the statue was completed. But her poem, it would not die. Years later, as America saw millions of immigrants arrive, mostly poor, mostly from war-torn or famine-struck countries, people began to realize that the statue meant more than politics or diplomacy. It was about opportunity. It was about a second chance. It was about light in the darkness. And it was Emma Lazarus's poem that gave people the words to describe what they were feeling. In 1903, nearly 20 years after she had written it, the poem was engraved on a bronze plaque and placed inside the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. And from that moment on, the statue's meaning changed forever. She was no longer just a monument. She was a mother to exiles, a light for the forgotten. Just a few hundred meters from the Statue of Liberty lies Ellis Island, which, starting in 1892, became the main immigration station for the United States. Between 1892 and 1954, over 12 million immigrants passed through Ellis Island. It was the first place they arrived after their long journey across the Atlantic. They were inspected, questioned, examined. Some were approved to enter America. Some were rejected. Some families were separated forever. And while they waited, scared and exhausted, many of them stood by the windows and looked at the Statue of Liberty. They stared at her torch, at her crown, at her unshaken stance in the middle of the sea, and they whispered to themselves, "If she is still standing, maybe I can stand too." As time passed, the Statue of Liberty began to mean different things to different people. For some, she was a symbol of freedom. For others, a symbol of hypocrisy. Because not all were truly free. And in that contradiction, powerful movements were born. 1. The suffragists, fighting for women's rights. In 1886, the same year the statue was unveiled, American women still couldn't vote. A group of brave suffragists, women demanding voting rights, sailed out into the harbor on the day of the unveiling. They weren't celebrating. They were protesting. They released a statement saying, "She may represent liberty for men, but she does not represent liberty for women." Their courage sparked conversations across the country. And though it took decades, women finally won the right to vote in 1920. But the statue had already become part of their fight. 2. The African American struggle. After the Civil War, slavery was abolished, but freedom was not equal. Many African Americans looked at the statue and said, "She is made of copper, but we are still in chains." In 1917, during World War I, a silent protest march was held in New York City by thousands of Black Americans, dressed in white, carrying signs that said, "Liberty has not come to us." Again, the Statue of Liberty became not just a symbol of pride, but a mirror, a challenge, a question. What kind of liberty do we really believe in? 3. The World Wars. Liberty under attack. During World War I and II, the Statue of Liberty became a powerful symbol of the fight against tyranny. Posters showed her image being chained, burned, or broken by enemies of freedom. She represented what was at stake. And after the war ended, when the United States helped rebuild Europe and welcomed refugees, many of them saw the statue and thought, "I have reached the land of hope." 4. The Civil Rights Movement. In the 1960s, during the Civil Rights era, the statue became part of the language of change once again. Martin Luther King Jr. often spoke about freedom and justice, and his words echoed the very torch liberty held. In 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed a law that ended racist immigration quotas, opening the doors to millions of immigrants from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. That same year, he stood near the Statue of Liberty and said, "Our beautiful lady stands for the idea that liberty should belong to all." When the statue arrived from France, she wasn't green. She was a shiny reddish-brown, the natural color of copper. But over the years, rain, wind, and air caused the copper to oxidize, creating a green outer layer called patina. By 1920, the entire statue had turned that iconic green-blue color we know today. At first, people wanted to clean it. But later, they realized the patina actually protected the statue from corrosion. So they let it stay. Her color changed, just like America itself. But her meaning only became deeper. By the 1980s, after nearly 100 years of standing tall, the Statue of Liberty began to show signs of damage. The torch had leaked. Rust had eaten parts of the iron skeleton. The staircase was unsafe. The flame had stopped shining brightly. America realized something terrifying. Even liberty can die if we don't take care of it. So for her 100th birthday in 1986, a massive restoration project began. Engineers, historians, artists, and workers from across the country came together to fix her. They removed the original torch and replaced it with a new one, covered in 24-karat gold, which now shines in the sunlight. They replaced her skeleton with stainless steel. They fixed her skin. They cleaned her body. And on July 4th, 1986, in one of the biggest celebrations in U.S. history, complete with fireworks, music, and world leaders, the Statue of Liberty was reborn. It was not just a birthday. It was a recommitment to freedom. Part 3. Liberty in the Modern World. Threatened, loved, and reborn. Again. As we left off, the Statue of Liberty had just turned 100 years old in 1986. She had been restored, cleaned, given a new torch, glowing bright with 24-karat gold. She stood once again as a proud, shining symbol of freedom and hope. But the world was changing fast, and even Lady Liberty could not escape the storms that were coming. After the celebration came the fear. 9/11. On September 11th, 2001, the world watched in horror as 2 planes crashed into the World Trade Center towers in New York City. Thousands died. The city was shaken. The world changed forever. And just a few miles away from Ground Zero, standing in silence across the water, was the Statue of Liberty. She had survived. But something deep had changed. Suddenly, the symbol of freedom was also a target. And with that came fear. For the first time in decades, the Statue of Liberty was completely closed to the public. The island was shut down. The statue's doors were locked. The crown, the torch, even the base. No visitors allowed. For months, she stood alone. Quiet, still, surrounded by security boats and silence. It was painful, but necessary. Because freedom doesn't just mean being open. It also means protecting what matters. Reopening with caution. Security becomes part of liberty. Eventually, in 2004, the pedestal reopened. In 2009, after careful redesign and improved safety measures, the crown was reopened to a limited number of visitors per day. But the torch, once open in the early 1900s, remains permanently closed to this day. Too dangerous. Now visiting the Statue of Liberty means going through airport-style security checks, background reviews, and guided access. Some people say this ruins the magic, but others say it proves just how valuable liberty is. We're willing to protect it with everything we've got. Even Lady Liberty needs guards. Even freedom needs boundaries, not to limit people, but to preserve the light. Liberty in pop culture, from hope to warning. As the years passed, the Statue of Liberty appeared everywhere. in movies, books, songs, cartoons, and advertisements. Sometimes she was shown as a symbol of triumph, but often she was shown as a warning. In films like Planet of the Apes, The Day After Tomorrow, and Independence Day, the statue is shown destroyed, drowned, or falling apart. Why? Because artists were asking a difficult question. What happens to a world where liberty is forgotten? They weren't attacking the statue. They were reminding us. She can fall if we don't protect her, if we forget her meaning. In art, she became a mirror of our fears, but also a reminder of our duty to protect what matters. A new immigration crisis and a new meaning. In the 21st century, the world saw a new wave of refugees and immigrants from Syria, Afghanistan, South America, Africa, and more. Many were fleeing war, poverty, and persecution, just like the immigrants of the 1800s. And once again, eyes turned toward the Statue of Liberty. People asked, does she still welcome the poor? Is she still a mother to the homeless, the tired, the desperate? Does that golden lamp still shine at the golden door? Some people wanted stricter immigration laws. Others wanted open arms for everyone. In the middle of the arguments, one image stood tall and silent. Lady Liberty. She didn't speak. She didn't choose sides, but her torch still burned, and her message was still engraved in bronze. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. In a time of division, she reminded us of who we were meant to be. A nation of immigrants, a land of opportunity, a place where freedom wasn't earned by birth, but by courage. The human experience. What it feels like to visit her today. Now let's shift from politics and history to something more personal. Let's talk about what it actually feels like to stand at the feet of the Statue of Liberty. For millions of people, visiting her is a lifelong dream. The journey begins early, taking a ferry boat from Manhattan or New Jersey. As the boat glides across the harbor and you start to see her figure growing on the horizon, there's a moment of silence on the deck. People get quiet, children stop talking, eyes widen, and then she's there, tall, calm, watching over the water like a guardian angel. You step onto Liberty Island, and as you walk toward her, you feel tiny, not just in size, but in time. You realize how many generations have walked here before you, how many hopes she's carried, how many prayers she's heard. Inside the pedestal, there's a museum, showing the full history of the statue. You see the original designs, old photos, broken chains from her feet. You see the old torch kept behind glass. You see the names of the people who built her, and the faces of immigrants who saw her from the ship. Then, if you're lucky enough to have a ticket, you climb the 354 narrow steps inside her body, all the way up to the crown. It's hot, it's tight, it's exhausting. But when you reach the top, you look out through the small windows in her crown, and in that moment, you see the city, the bridges, the water, the sky, and something strange happens. You don't feel above it all. You feel responsible for it all, because once you stand in her crown, you're no longer just a visitor. You become a guardian of her meaning. She has no face turned toward America. Here's something most people never notice. The Statue of Liberty is not facing America. She is turned outward, toward the sea, toward the immigrants, toward the unknown, toward the rest of the world. It's as if she's saying, "Come, I'm here for you. I will not turn my back." She's not here to celebrate the past. She's here to welcome the future. That single detail, her direction, says everything. Her torch is still lit, but she needs us now. The world today is more connected and more divided than ever before. We live in an age of technology, speed, and endless noise. But people are still searching for the same things they always have: safety, belonging, opportunity, freedom. And that's why the Statue of Liberty still matters. Because she is not just an old monument made of copper. She is a living idea. And like all ideas, she can be forgotten, ignored, or misunderstood. But if we remember her, if we tell her story, if we keep her torch burning in our hearts, then she becomes more powerful than any weapon, wall, or flag. She becomes a promise. Part 4. The Legacy of Liberty. A flame that must never die. The Statue of Liberty is still standing. After storms, wars, protests, attacks, and time itself, she is still standing. She has outlived presidents, witnessed revolutions, and welcomed generations of strangers who became citizens, workers, artists, builders, soldiers, and leaders. But now we must ask the most important question of all. What does she mean today? And what will she mean in the next 100 years? Because a statue is only as powerful as the people who believe in it. A world full of crisis, and a torch that still shines. In today's world, people are facing some of the most difficult challenges in human history. Millions are displaced from their homes due to war, natural disasters, and violence. Thousands die trying to cross borders for a better life. Women in many countries are still denied basic freedom. Children grow up in camps, never knowing what safety feels like. And in some places, people are punished just for speaking the truth. In this world, does the Statue of Liberty still matter? Yes. In fact, she matters more than ever, because her torch isn't just for America. It never was. She stands in the harbor of New York, yes, but her message is universal. She reminds the world that freedom has a face, that liberty has a figure, that hope has a home. And it's not in money, not in power, not in buildings or weapons. It's in a statue, built by two countries, assembled by immigrants, held together by belief. The people who still cry when they see her. Every year, thousands of people stand in front of her and cry. Some are tourists, some are immigrants, some are Americans seeing her for the first time. But the tears aren't just about beauty. They're about memory, about pain, about dreams that felt impossible. Until now. A refugee from Syria once said, "I lost everything, but when I saw her, I knew I could begin again." A woman from Haiti whispered, "I told my daughter, that's what freedom looks like." A man from Sudan looked up and said, "We walked for years, and then we saw her, and we knew we had made it." These are not stories from a movie. These are real people, real lives, real emotions. And the Statue of Liberty is part of their healing. She doesn't give them citizenship. She gives them courage. Her message is silent, but her meaning is loud. Here's something to think about. The Statue of Liberty has no microphone. She has no mouth. She makes no speeches. She doesn't move. She doesn't shout. And yet, she has spoken louder than almost any leader in history. Because her power is not in words. Her power is in what she represents. She represents a world where a child can go to school safely. A mother can speak her mind without fear. A man can pray or not pray, love who he wants, work where he wants, live where he feels safe. And where opportunity is not limited by race, gender, birthplace, or language. That is not a fantasy. It's a goal, one we are still working toward. But as long as she stands, the dream is alive. A gift that changed the world. Let's never forget, the Statue of Liberty was a gift, from the people of France to the people of America. But over time, that gift grew into something bigger than anyone imagined. It became a gift to the world. A symbol for freedom fighters in places far beyond America. A light for oppressed women in nations where their voices are silenced. A reminder for young people that the world is theirs to shape. A warning to tyrants that the flame of liberty will never go out, no matter how dark the night. Her light is not American. Her light is human. If the Statue of Liberty could speak, she might say this. I am not here to say the world is perfect. I am here to remind you, it can be better. She is not a celebration of what was. She is a challenge to create what should be. And that's what makes her eternal. Because every generation must decide, will we protect liberty? Will we welcome the stranger? Will we speak up for the silent? Will we fight for justice, even when it's hard? If the answer is yes, even a small yes, then her torch burns brighter. But if the answer is no, then we let the light go out. The statue will still stand, but the idea will be in danger. At the end of this story, we must realize something powerful. The Statue of Liberty is not finished because her job is not done. She needs people, like you, like me, to carry her torch forward. And that doesn't always mean changing the whole world. Sometimes it just means being kind to someone who is different from you, listening before judging, giving when it's hard, standing up when it's easier to stay quiet, learning, growing, believing. Her torch is not heavy. It fits in your heart. And once it's there, it lights up not just your life, but everyone around you. Imagine a small boat in the middle of a huge ocean. Dark night, cold wind, no direction. On that boat is a mother holding her baby. She's lost her home, her husband, her past, but she hasn't lost one thing: hope. And then, in the distance, she sees it. A light, not from a city, not from a ship, from a statue, standing tall, holding a torch, telling her, you are not forgotten, you are not unwanted, you are welcome. That is not a fairy tale. That is the story of millions of real people. And that is why the Statue of Liberty is one of the greatest creations in human history. She is not just made of copper and steel. She is made of sacrifice, struggle, dreams, and love. She doesn't belong to